Some of the most common criticisms of raw dog food is that it isn't backed by science. There are virtually no research exploring raw dog or cat food. A lot of the research actually is from dry dog food companies or manufacturers that have funded the research and have concluded that their foods are complete and balanced, and that's why you should feed their brands to your dog or cat. A lot of those papers and the industry overall tries to rubbish raw dog food because, again, there is no research backing it up. That is until recently. A new research paper called Raw Proof intends to change that, intends to give you, the consumer, a new insight into raw dog food and why you might consider it from a scientific standpoint. Now, the paper itself set out to investigate two pivotal things. First, whether a species appropriate, aka raw dog food, diet can be formulated as to meet the highest possible nutritional guidelines as specified by the FEDIAF, which is the European Pet Food Industry. And second, whether such a diet will prove to be nutritionally adequate when fed to a meaningful sample of dogs over 26 weeks using an extended version of the rigorous trial protocol developed by the Association of American Feed Control Officials, or AAFCO. And it's very important that the paper tries to adhere to these two bodies because within the pet food industry, the dry food manufacturers and all the research has to adhere to these two bodies. And these two bodies, even though they are not maybe the most important bottom line, they are two of the most cited and two of the most important bodies in the industry. So trying to adhere to them and to get them as a reference seems to be a wise choice for the paper. Now, these are the results of a 24 research investigation into a species appropriate diet. And here we have to pause and we have to give you a little caveat. What does species appropriate mean? Species appropriate is the premise that dogs, your Canis lupus familiaris, have the typical physiology and digestive system of a carnivore, and that their diet should consist of prey and a small amount of plant matter. So what does that mean? Well, if you think about it, if your dog were left to their own devices and were to catch a small mammal, that mammal will comprise of roughly 80-10-10. 80% lean meat, 10% offal, of which 5% is liver, and 10% bone, with a small amount of fermented vegetables inside their stomach. And your dog would try to eat the whole thing. So those whole prey ratios, whether we can debate whether it's 80 or 70 or 60, is what the paper is trying to adhere to, is trying to put you in the mindset of. And you'll be asking at this point, right, okay, so what did they actually eat? What did these dogs eat for so many weeks? Well, it is important for you to know that the examination and the whole investigation wasn't done willy-nilly. There were some pretty strict guardrails. The researchers wanted to do everything by the book, and for examples, all dogs were given a complete physical examination by a vet at the beginning and the end of the test. And the diet could fail if any dogs showed critical or pathological signs of nutritional deficiency or excess. So it is important for you to know that there were guardrails and there were parameters that they wanted to adhere to. They wanted to be as clinical and as research-based and scientific-based as possible so that there could be very little comeback whenever they presented the results. They wanted to be as impartial as possible and try to cover as many holes as possible in the research. So to the recipes, they were fed 5 recipes: prime beef, tender lamb, free-range chicken, wild rabbit, and free-range chicken without vegetables. And as we tell you on this channel over and over, ingredients are key. And so here are two of the recipes the dogs were fed. The prime beef formula was minced beef, ox heart, and finely ground bone, and that comprised 67% of the recipe. And then carrots, cabbage, cauliflower, parsnip, and other seasonal vegetables were 33% of that particular recipe. The chicken without vegetables, for example, was minced chicken including bone, that was 85%, chicken heart was 8%, and chicken liver was 7%. Now, another caveat in the report tells us that 3 dogs dropped out of the trial for non-health related reasons, but we don't get any further insight. Now, the second part involved a food trial. Over a period of 26 weeks, 23 dogs were fed a complete species appropriate diet. Full records were kept, and their health and weight were monitored at the beginning and at the end of the trial. The protocol employed met and exceeded the requirements of the AAFCO. All 23 dogs were found to have maintained their weight and to be every bit as healthy at the end of the trial as in the beginning. And so what did the research find? Well, in short, the raw dog food diet that was the subject of the research can be indeed described as complete and balanced. And that is a nod to a lot of dog food manufacturers that put complete and balanced on the front of the packet and harp on this notion that their food has to be complete and balanced. So this raw dog food trial was intended to match the appropriateness and the nomenclature complete and balanced that so many people harp on. All the further comments add that this research can provide reassurance and comfort to those who have been concerned over the nutritional adequacy and safety of raw feeding. Of course, the findings only apply to the complete diet being analyzed and trialed. The paper goes on to say that the conclusion of this research is very clear. A properly formulated raw food diet will meet an adult dog's nutritional requirements. But hold on. There's a quote that I love that says, "Show me the incentive and I will show you the outcome." What does this mean? This means that generally speaking, people who have a vested interest in a topic will sometimes create research or skew particular outcomes in order to favor their viewpoint. And so it is very important that you know that the people behind the study are raw dog food lovers and huge advocates. Just to be very clear, this video is not sponsored and we are completely independent. The research itself was conducted by Jonathan Self, which is the founder of Honey's Real Dog Food, a raw dog food provider. It is also important to note that a group of highly decorated vets that support raw dog feeding were involved in the research and trial, and overall supervision were appointed and monitored the whole study. People incredibly decorated in the field of raw dog food nutrition, such as Ian Billinghurst and Dr. Nick Thompson. So these people were already huge proponents of raw dog food. What am I trying to say here? Were interests at play in this research and the overall study? Yes, of course, that is not new of any sort of research. But what is very clear is that the argument that raw dog food is not safe and therefore should not even be considered for you to feed your dog or cat is becoming less and less prevalent. And there are now people willing to invest and willing to do research so you can feed raw dog food in a safe and nutritious way. And that is the big takeaway from me. Now, all that glitters is not gold, and so there are a few drawbacks of feeding raw dog food that you need to be aware of, and you can watch them in this video next here. And if you want to see what the top brands in the UK of raw dog food are, video not sponsored, you can check it out here too. And I'll see you in the next one.